All right, our next lesson for this week is going to be looking at how we organize the diversity of life. Now, a lot of students get confused between two concepts. We just went over levels of biological organization. The atoms that build into molecules, the molecules that group together to form organelles, organelles that group together in cells, different types of cells that become tissues, tissues become organs, organs group together in organ systems, and the collection of all the organ systems is the organism. Those are the levels of biological organization. Now we're going to look at how we put different organisms into groups, that is organizing the diversity of life. So there are about 3 million named things, and all of them we put in different groups based on how the different characters that they have. And you can think of these as each as being a subset. The smallest group in our organization are species. So this is the smallest group that we can put an organism into. So the example in table 1.1 shows you that humans, we are one type of animal. So we are put into a species, and our species name is Homo sapien. Well, there are other Homo groups out there. You've heard of maybe Homo erectus is another one, or Homo neanderthaliensis. There were other types of organisms that looked like us, animals that looked like us. And so because we're similar, we put them all into the same genera, but then give each one that has a unique character a species. So like I say, each of these is going to be a subset of the other. So genera is a larger group than species. Families are a larger group than genera. This keeps going on and on. The next circle out would be orders. That's a larger group of organisms. For instance, we are in the order Animalia. So all animals are placed into this bigger group, and then we start separating you out. If you're a fish, you go into one family. If you're reptiles, you go into another family. If you're an amphibian, you go into another family. So all of these we keep going out. The groups get bigger and bigger. Classes are the next biggest group. Those are grouped into phylums, kingdoms, and then domains. Domains are the largest group we can put things into. And there are only 3 domains. And so this is where we're going to come down to. You need to know all of these words, but you only need to know the characteristics of domains and kingdoms. So it says summarize the characteristics of domains and kingdoms. If you go on to take a second semester of biology, they will go into all these different kingdoms, and you'll start to learn some of the characteristics of some of the orders and classes. You'll start to know more of these characteristics that go with each one. But you are only responsible for domains and kingdoms in this list. You have to know all the names, but only the characteristics of these 2. Before we can talk about their characteristics, we first need to introduce another type of cell. So far, the cells that we talked about have been called eukaryotic cells. You'll be taking a quiz this week on eukaryotic cells. The cells that we went over last week, the plant and animal cells, these are eukaryotic cells. What distinguishes them is that they have a membrane-bound genetic material, i.e. the DNA. And by membrane bound, it means we have a membrane around it. We call that membrane bound genetic material the nucleus. So remember, the DNA is in lots of strands called chromatin, and these are within a nuclear envelope. So that nucleus is your membrane bound genetic material. They also have membrane bound organelles. the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, the lysosomes, the peroxisomes, the central vacuole, the vesicles, the chloroplasts, the mitochondria. All of these are membrane-bound organelles. The other type of cell is called a prokaryotic cell. In a prokaryotic cell, we do not have membrane-bound genetic material. So, this is the distinguishing characteristics. No membrane-bound genetic material or organelles. So both of these organisms will have a plasma membrane. So this is a plasma membrane. Here's the plasma membrane on a prokaryotic cell. Both of them will have genetic material. The squiggly line is my genetic material. It is DNA in both organisms. The difference, though, as we just said, my eukaryotic cell will now have a nuclear envelope. So you notice, same genetic material, same plasma membrane, an additional inner membrane around the genetic material. Plus, this one will have organelles. So, pro means first, eu means true, karyo means nucleus. So this means first nucleus, meaning that there was no membrane. Eu means true, because as we all know, animals, and humans in particular, are the perfect example of an organism. And so when they were naming these things early on, because we are the pinnacle of everything that could exist, whatever we had was the true. So this is what it means to have a true nucleus. You have a membrane surrounding that genetic material. These cells we think came before, so this is what the organization was like before. Pro, this is what it is as things have evolved over time. It's really a big change, because if this is very important information, because it contains all the instructions for life, having two membranes around it to protect it is a better way to go. So now that we know these two types of cells, this will help us to organize the different domains and kingdoms.